I don't know if it was the plane ride or dehydration. I don't know what it was, but like I was having a little bit of dizzy spells off and on fight day, and it just got me in my head super bad. I mean, my nerves was. I thought my days of having bad nerves was over with, but I was wrong.
The AllStar app, the number one app in the business. UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, and more. Get the app right now. Link in description. The Contender Series, man, last September. You know, you go in as the underdog and you get that second round finish, a beautiful finish. That first round, though, man, it was super chaotic, man. Looking back at that fight, man, how do you feel about how everything transpired?
It was a good experience for me. Leading up to that fight, I thought I was gonna be faster and stronger than I'd ever been in my life, and like I don't know, I guess I'd maybe had some kind of adrenaline dump in the back. I don't know what the deal was, but my legs and my arms, they felt like they was 100 pounds apiece,
Oh,
man. And I was back in the back, and like the session, the time, like the day before this, we hit pads and stuff, and I'm telling you, man, I was the fastest I've ever been in my life. I was just thinking like, wow, I'm about to be so impressive. And then we get to the venue, and I don't know if it was the plane ride or dehydration. I don't know what it was, but like I was having a little bit of dizzy spells off and on fight day, and it just got me in my head super bad. I mean, my nerves was. I thought my days of having bad nerves was over with, but I was wrong. My nerves was just, man, they was terrible. And in the back, I knew I was in for a rough first round, just how I was moving around. I wasn't moving nothing like I'd been moving the whole camp. And it's just, like I said, I guess I'd had an adrenaline dump. And that first round, man, it was definitely an experience. It's amazing how many thoughts you can have. And, just a short amount of time, you get that, I think they call it hyper arousal. It seems like time slows down and everything. And honestly, man, I was somewhere else for a minute. I mean, I was like, I'm sitting here getting cracked, heads rocking back and forth, eating just god awful knees, and I remember having all these crazy thoughts. I was like, having thoughts like, man, maybe I'm not as good as as everyone thinks I was, or maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, and then I'm thinking like, well, you've got another year to get here. You can get back here next year. And I'm just having all these crazy
wow.
negative thoughts, man. And like, I mean, it's like I had a million of them in that, 5 minutes. But I remember like, like when I was talking about, I felt like I was somewhere else for a minute. Like I'm sitting there getting cracked, and I didn't never feel like I was about like knocked out. I mean, he definitely cracked me and it rattled me a little bit. But as far as like going to sleep, I didn't feel like I was ever like close to really going to sleep. But there's kind of a moment in the fight where he's kind of got me against the cage and he's just hammering away, man. And like I kind of like had my arms out like this in the video, and like that was one of the moments where I was like kind of like having all them crazy thoughts. And then I heard, Mike Beltron, he was like, "Fighter, you got to improve. I'm fixing to stop it," or something like that. And then I kind of like come back to the fight and was like, "Wait, you got, you better fight." And so I went ahead and tried to turn it back on, man. But yeah, my switch just didn't. It took it, longer to flip than it particularly does. I think part of that was, like I said, I think part of it was due to nerves. But I think, man, not having my crowd there, it really. I mean, since I've been actually training and fighting and stuff since 2000, and I done a couple fights without ever training, but since I started training and getting ready in 2018, I have been just so blessed with having people follow me. I mean, even when I first got started, man, I'd have a really good crowd, follow me a couple hours away. And then after I come back home and fought my first big fight back home, man, I'll have, several hundred people there chanting, Peek, Peek, Peek. And it just, the energy, the vibe, everything just seems to go better for me when I got a crowd. I feel like I'm an entertainer. I like entertaining people, and it just, that Apex, man, it was definitely I had probably about 6 or 7 people there, friends that they'd give me tickets for. But man, I felt lonely in that place, honestly, and it was weird, like going from hearing all them crazy crowds and how loud it is, and not being able to really hear my corners because my crowd is loud to now I'm hearing my opponent's corner and like I'm listening to their corner more than I am mine and they're saying things and I'm like, what are they what's he trying to do? And it just kind of it was a little different,
Yeah.
but we got that experience behind us and it was a really good learning experience and everything.
Mhm.
I guess the most I took away from it was obviously I got a strong chin, but
Mhm.
that even if conditions are I've not by any means had perfect conditions in my other fights, but as far as mentally goes, like I've been pretty well mentally there, even when maybe physical health wasn't up to par or something. I've not had any perfect counts by any means, but this one definitely let me know that like I ain't got to be like that. I can still be like not maybe I can be having mental issues with the
Mhm.
fight and still come out on top as long as I just get in there and fight like I can fight.
Well, if people didn't know you had that dog in you, like you showed it in that fight on the contender series. Like you showed the survival, man. And it's crazy like how you say it, like you had all these different types of thoughts going through your mind in that short period of time. Because 5 minutes is really nothing for anybody in this world. But once you step in that cage and you spend it 5 minutes surviving, it's another thing, man. And it's a great warm-up fight for you to actually make your UFC debut because you're going back to the same spot.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, I think it's all going to work to my favor as far as having been there and experienced that, the feel of that building and everything. So I'm excited for it, man. I do wish it was like I am ready to get back in front of my crowd though. I miss them. Gosh, I miss them terribly. I took a lot of things for granted on the regional scene, and it didn't really them things I took for granted didn't ever really it didn't really hit me until I was getting ready for the contender series fight, and I looked and found an old notebook, that I wrote all my ticket sales down in, and I was just like, man, I'm glad I ain't got to do that anymore, running around doing that. And then I was like, man, I don't have to do that. I'm not like, don't have to do that anymore. I don't ever get to do that anymore. And I kind of had like a bitter, really more bitter than sweet moment, I would say, because I was just like, them days of going and hanging out with everybody in the back or walking around the crowd and just hugging everybody and get fist bumps, all that stuff. That them days are they're about over with. I mean, they would say they are over with, man. Especially like getting them arenas and stuff. You can't. I mean, you're not getting to go around and getting a personal, anything personal going on with anybody. It's more of a, from the cage. But
Well,
but I,
it's part of the game, right? It's part of like rising up the ranks and becoming a contender or a prospect or a star or whatnot, right? In this sport.
yes, sir.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. I don't guess I'd really ever thought about it too awful much until it was gone, and then
Yeah.
I was like, ah, man,
But you overcame
But
it, man. You overcame it in the cage, man. You overcame it. That's what matters the most, right? You overcame it. You came back and got that finish, got the contract February 25th. You're gonna make your promotional debut against Alex Reyes. The last time he has competed is 2017. That's a long time ago, man. That's before the pandemic hit and all of that. Do you believe in ring rust?
I do. I do. I feel like you can. I feel like there's certain people that it doesn't bother as much per se, but man, it's so hard to be away from it for that long, and old nerves resurface. I would say. I mean, I broke my fibula back in like I think it was 2019, and um, it ended up being like I mean I broke my fibula and then I cut my left leg with a chainsaw and I just had a bunch of other outwardly stuff going on that end up being like I didn't compete for like a year and a half, I believe. I actually went from fought in February of 2019 and I didn't fight again till October of 2020, and that's actually when I made my pro debut. But even with just a year and a half layover, or layoff, I mean, I definitely like had some old nerves that had resurfaced, but it's kind of what I'm saying too. Like they didn't really, I wouldn't say they really bothered me all that bad, but during that fight, there was also a lot of emotion with my opponent. I didn't like that guy a bit. Me and him we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and so I had a lot more, I guess like animosity or something built up that really kind of covered up the nerves a little more. But yeah, definitely, I think it's definitely a real thing. A lot of the experts and fighters say it's not a real thing, but maybe they're one of them people that I'm talking about that like it doesn't really affect, and maybe they don't get ring rust. I think it's more individual to individual, but there's still got to be a little bit there in everybody. I would say just some of us are better at masking it than others.
And then in your debut, it ended in a no contest, which is kind of, I don't know, it's like the outcome you don't want, right? It's like either you win or you lose. You don't want to just walk away with no result.
Man, yeah, that whole incident was it was a mess, man. The guy, I feel like, and a lot of people feel like that, the guy in my pro debut was just looking for a way out, man. You know, I, I felt like we both was getting a little tired. I mean, even though it was the first round, but there was a lot of emotions built up in that fight, and we come out guns blazing, and but I felt like I had his number, man. I mean, the fight was going downhill for him, and we kicked each other at the same time, and I hit him. I landed, in the low blow area, and but it was my gosh, I barely kicked him, man. I mean, it's on YouTube. I think it's on AFC 5 at the end of it, but man, it was just I was disheartened about that whole situation, man. It was hard to get by because nobody wanted to fight that guy, man. In his respect, like nobody wanted to fight him. He had fought probably between I think he was like 4-1 at the time on his sanction record, but I mean he used to fight in them bad man competitions, and they'd fight 3 or 4 times a night. So between all of his unsanctioned events and sanctioned events, I bet he'd had probably 30 or 40 fights, and nobody wanted to fight him. And I was like, I'll fight him. So I just wanted to gain the respect from everybody in the South for fighting that guy, but I don't know. It happened the way it's supposed to happen, I guess.
For sure. And yeah, man, you after that you just ran the table. You just destroyed pretty much everybody. Just first round finishes back to back to back to back. Insane. When you got a guy that hasn't fought in like 5 years or so, how do you prepare for him, man? Are you just like not worried about what he's do you even look back at his old fights, or do you just say, okay, this guy is just gonna come in brand new. I'm just gonna focus on myself?
Uh, no, I think he had fought long enough, and developed a game plan long enough that I feel like he's got maybe a lot of the same tendencies. But 5 years, I mean, you can change a lot in 5 years. That's about when I started, and I'd beat the crap out of myself. I fought myself 5 years ago, so you can. It's hard to really put together, like as far as just it's hard to put together some things, I guess you'd say, or it ain't hard to put them together, but it's hard to fully trust everything because I mean, like I said, he can be a totally different monster, but he does some things so well. He's got a great like high crotch and a few other things that he does so well and did so well, and it worked so well for him that I feel like it's going to be hard for him, especially if there's that ring rush there. If he's developed any new tendencies or new skill or anything like that, it being that long of a layover, I feel like it'd be maybe harder to implement them things since he done it a certain way for so long. You know what I mean? I feel like them old tendencies and all that. I feel like they will resurface due to instinct almost.
Where are you splitting your camp?
Oh, I'm mainly at I'm at Agogi Combatives, man. I mean, I'm here. I literally live here. I've got me a little room upstairs, and man, it takes me like 3 or 4 minutes to get down here on the mats and get to going. Now, I always do my striking with Jeff Powell. I mean, I started out with him, back in 2018. I met him at a jiu-jitsu place down in Kimball, Tennessee, and that dude's just I've never met anybody like him that knows so much about fighting. I mean, he'll be giving you fighting references from what seems like the 1800s, man. I mean, he's a book of knowledge when it comes to fighting. He's solid, man.
That's nice, man. That's nice. And I saw that you went back to Vegas late last year and got those tests done at the PI. Anything interesting from the results?
Oh yeah, man, it was a neat experience. That whole I didn't realize the performance institution was like that, man. I mean, I'd read a little bit about it, but we got there and I was just like, dude, this is heaven on earth for fighters, and everything's free. I mean, it was it was cool, but yeah, they did several tests on me, man. They one test in particular they did what they call a neck extension test, and I didn't know anything about this really, or never really think about it too awful much. But like your neck strength has a lot to do with how much pop you can take on a punch. I mean, and it all makes sense. I didn't ever really think about it like that, you know. And they're doing all these different strength tests and everything, and they're like, we're gonna test your neck. I was like, all right. And there's like, it'll basically tell us like how well you can take a punch and stuff. And then, what we need to work on. They was trying to divide, like, trying to come up with a game plan on me, new workout system and everything, see where I was lacking at strength. And we got to that neck test, and I started doing it. And that one gentleman, he was like, I started doing they test, strength this way, back and forward. And it was the forward test was the main one that I about blew that thing off the charts. I mean, I started doing it, and that one guy was like, he said, Jesus Christ, man, if you got a steel rod ran through your neck. And we kind of just laughed, and he said, going off these readings, man, you ought to be able to take a punch. And I said, did you not watch the Contender series? And he said, no, I hadn't seen it. And I was like, well, you'd know if you watched it. And we kind of laughed about it. And at the end of it and everything, I said, well, man, I said, going off of them readings, I ought to be testing in, like, the top percentile, huh? And he was like, man, you might be at the top. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, like of everybody. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool, man. And the next day they was doing my exit meeting, and they just all get together and tell me how I did on things and what meal plans, things of that nature. And a totally different gentleman pulled up, like he went to that chart and pulled that chart up, and like, man, I was almost like above the readings that they even had for that chart. And he said, in your neck extension, he said, I don't think we've ever seen one as high. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, like of any weight class, I don't think we've had any athlete in any weight class test that high on a neck extension test. And I was like,
So how has it been utilizing the PI for this training camp, your first training camp for your first fight?
well, man, honestly, I won't get to really the benefits of it until I get there. We hadn't, they're so far away. It takes like about 4.5 hours to get there by plane.
Oh,
And
that's right. Well, did they send like meal plans or anything like that to help you out,
man,
change up
they have,
things?
yes, sir. Yeah, they did, man. They've sent me, throughout my whole pro career, I've struggled with, being able to, have supplements all the time, and at times maybe not necessarily having like proper nutrition, really just kind of eating what I could get my hands on. And man, they hook me up with supplements every month. I get free supplements, and when you're 6 weeks out, through Icon Meals, they'll send you, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 6 weeks. And man, that has been such a blessing. I can't tell you enough how much of a blessing that has been. I mean, one, I got food that maybe I necessarily wouldn't have, and I ain't got to cook it. I've been having to cook everything for a long time now, man, and
Mhm.
it saves on time, and it's such a blessing, such a blessing. I can't thank the UFC enough for taking care of me like they have these last few weeks, man. It's been so nice.
Now with the contender series out the way, you're stepping into the cage as an actual UFC fighter, your debut. What are you expecting out of yourself in this performance?
I expect nothing less than a good show. I always expect myself to get in there and get the finish. Really, if I don't look for decisions, and I definitely don't look for losses. I'm trying to be trying to get in there and get the job done. By any means necessary. I mean, I'll get in there, and I'll find a way to get the finish.
Yeah, well, people will look at your record and they'll think, okay, he has 100% finishing rate and he's undefeated. We're probably gonna see some action in there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. I went to decision in my amateur career, and that in that fight, I felt like It was the only time in my life that during a fight I was like, I've done enough. In the third round, I was like, I've done enough. If I just finish out on top here, I'll win. And we was in his hometown and everything, and this fight ended, and they give him the decision. And I remember like that pretty well lit a fire under me, man. I was like, if I by any means necessary, I'll try my best to never go to a decision again. And if I do go to a decision, I'll be swinging to the very last whistle. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna ever think that I've won a fight again for sure.
February 25th, UFC Fight Night in Las Vegas. Go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app. Trevor, man, it was good catching up with you. And yeah, man, I'm excited to see you back inside that octagon. It's going to be an incredible fight against Alex Reyes, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, man. Really enjoyed it.